Welcome to this morning's conference call. Again, Senator Chuck Grassley, hosted by the Clinton Regional Development Corporation. The CRDC is a bi-state nonprofit economic development organization serving the greater Clinton region since 1953. For more information, please visit us online at clintondevelopment.com. Our guest today is no stranger to the greater Clinton region, elected to Iowa's legislature in 1958, U.S. House of Representatives in 1974, and the U.S. Senate in 1980. Senator Grassley currently serves as Senate President pro tem for the 116th Congress, which places him third in the presidential line of succession. I would now like to introduce the CRDC's President and CEO, Aaron Cole, to begin the interview. Aaron?
Yes, thank you so much, Andy. Senator Grassley, again, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today, as well as your knowledge and your insight into what's going on currently within Congress. Of course, it's important to all of us. We're here in Clinton, Iowa today. I'm looking out my window. It's snow, so didn't expect that in the middle of April. But nonetheless, it's a beautiful day, very interesting times, unprecedented times, and someone with your expertise can really sort of, help us figure out what's going on. So we really appreciate your time. I also want to take a minute to thank your staff. You mentioned them. We work very closely with Penny Bassick as well as Jennifer Hines, and both of them helped us set up the call today. They're very responsive, and we appreciated that. So I guess we're ready to begin. We did receive a number of questions in advance, so I'm going to start out with one that we received from a banker in our community, and he has both a statement and a question. And this is in regards to the Small Business Administration's Paycheck Protection Program. So here it is. Our area is fortunate to be served by a number of successful, effective community banks. All of these banks are processing and funding the Small Business Administration's Paycheck Protection Program loans for our local small businesses. These businesses need the PPP program to continue to pay their employees and stay in business. Banks have acted quickly to implement the program and get the funds to the businesses that need it most. Now that the funds have already been depleted, what is Congress planning to do next? Will they continue funding the SBA Paycheck Protection Program?
Definitely. It should have happened last Thursday, but there was opposition. Let me say, when we're not in Washington, D.C., how something like this would have to be done, and it's a very high hurdle to get over, but it's called unanimous consent. So the Republican leader calls all 53 Republicans up. The Democrat leader calls up all 47 Democrats, and it's called a whip call. And there's the question is, do you object to, in this case, do you object to $250 billion being passed the Senate by unanimous consent? And if there's no objection, that would go through probably with just one senator on the floor of the United States Senate, but would have the consent of all 100 senators. And there was objection to that last Thursday. Maybe after 2:30 this afternoon, because I'm having a conference call with other senators that were on the task forces to put this program together. Maybe we'll be told that between Democrat leaders and the Secretary of Treasury, and obviously with senators being involved in it, there may be unanimous consent to move that now. And I presume besides the $250 billion, if it's going to move, there'll be some more money in it for hospitals. But to tell you the truth, from my point of view, there shouldn't have to be anything added to it, because of all the $2 2/10 trillion of money that was appropriated in the CARES Act, the only one that has run out of money at this point is the small business program. And so we ought to take care of it and worry about other programs when they run out of money. And I'll give you an example of $130 billion for hospitals. Only $30 billion of that has been put out yet. So we ought to take it a step at a time, but sometimes political compromise demands meeting other things even if they aren't legitimate. But I favor that program, and I hope it's done soon, because the money ran out 36 hours ago.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. As a follow-on question to that, the SBA is also currently implementing that economic injury disaster loan program, which I understand the funds have also been depleted for that. So are you in favor of continuing funding or trying to find funding for both of those programs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, and then another question that we think a lot about here in the Clinton region, you of course are aware that we have a very strong manufacturing base. You know, dozens of quite large manufacturing companies in a wide range of industry sectors. They continue to work right now, thank goodness, and you know, they had vacancies in their plants before this happened, and they continue to have vacancies. Meanwhile, unfortunately, some small businesses in our community, we realize they may not survive this economic disruption. The question now is workforce development. You know, is Congress considering now, if we're looking a little bit further down the road at recovery, at workforce development or other adult education funding options for displaced workers, for those who might be in the service sector now, but might need some retraining in order to get jobs in other sectors? Is Congress thinking about something like that right now?
The only thing that we would be thinking about in that area would be if the money that's appropriated for multiple programs that would fall into worker retraining, some of them through community colleges and some of them through nonprofit organizations, and et cetera, et cetera. And I don't even know how many of those programs exist, but there's a lot more than just one or two. I think it would relate to the amount of money that needs to be carried out those programs, not the start of a new program. Because you see, money goes to a community college. They have a great deal of flexibility of what they want to train workers for and the need of a particular area of the state or of the country. And there's great flexibility in how those programs can operate to meet local needs. So there's not really one national program that we're going to, let's say, take unemployed restaurant workers and put them into some other job. That's an individual decision of what they want to do. But we want a program, and we have programs in place. So the question is there enough money? And I would assume if there's not enough money, that there'll be more money appropriated.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Senator. And I would just mention here in the Clinton region, the Clinton Regional Development Corporation, as the economic development arm, if you will, of the community, is working very closely with Clinton Community College, which is part of Eastern Iowa Community College. And we are literally having that discussion now. You know, how can we start planning for our people in our community to help them potentially retrain down the line? So we take that very seriously, and we'll be working on that.
I would think the biggest problem you'd have is a lot of people who might be unemployed don't know about what Clinton Community College or Eastern Iowa Community College would have to offer. So public announcements would be very important for your program to be a success.
Absolutely. No, that's a very good point. And we'll certainly take that to heart. So we have one more question. You know, I know that you yourself are very much interested in healthcare and certainly in rural healthcare. And Clinton itself is not considered rural, but in our immediate vicinity, we do have, we have rural areas, and the healthcare facilities are not as large as or as well equipped as, ones that you'll find in larger urban areas. You know, this issue right now, unfortunately, the pandemic and COVID-19 is showing us that we truly have a shortage of nurses and doctors and other medical professionals all over the country, but certainly in rural healthcare facilities, they can be affected even more so. This brings up the question of whether or not Congress would ever consider creating legal immigration channels for foreign medical personnel to immigrate to the U.S. or on a non-immigrant visa to open up those channels, or for the students, the foreign students who come to the United States now and study at our medical schools. Would it make sense for us to try and create some additional immigration channels for them to remain in the U.S. if they were willing to work in rural facilities, or, to find some way to direct them towards rural facilities? Do you have opinion on that, Senator?
Yeah, first of all, the sort of doctors and other health professionals coming in from overseas is an ongoing immigration issue. And it's mostly limited to the amount of people that can come in any one year. So the issue isn't, are we willing to accept those people? It would be how many we were willing to accept. I can't answer your question the extent to which those programs dictate that they have to go to certain parts of the country. I just can't answer that question. Should that be the case, the extent to which we have underserved areas served by the National Health Corps, we already have a program for that. I'm not sure how that interacts with the immigration of nurses and other people, but there is some opposition in Congress, not from me, but from people that are just generally opposed to more liberal immigration. But in healthcare, and particularly in rural healthcare, we see it as an issue. I've recently dealt with it because we've had people that have come over with green cards to serve, and they get into issues with their children aging out and maybe having to be deported because they age out. And I'm working on legislation with Senator Rand Paul on this issue, and also with I'm just one of the two, I can't think of his name, one of the two senators from Utah on this issue, and trying to get some compromise so those people don't have the problems that they have of staying in this country.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. One other question, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act created, paid sick leave for people. Is that something in your office? What response have you received regarding additional paid sick leave for people?
Well, I'd say outside of the pandemic that we're in, that was an issue very much being pushed by the president's daughter out of the White House, and and Senator Ernst has been one of the leaders in this area within the Senate, and it's one of the major items we're facing. The trouble is there's 4 or 5 different bills, and trying to get people to coalesce around one bill is very difficult sometimes, particularly if there's strong differences between the two political parties. But also on this issue, there's a great deal of bipartisan consensus as well. So I think that would have been an issue without the pandemic. Now it has become an issue just because of stuff related to the pandemic and just to the people affected by the pandemic. But I think it gives some emphasis to helping us get a longer-term solution to it as well. I'm not sure that I would anticipate that solution coming as part of the bills that we've had, like 3 so far, and there'll probably be a 4th one to get us through this economic shutdown. But I wouldn't expect to be a part of that for a long-term solution, but I would expect what we've done already to continue through this pandemic situation.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Senator. We appreciate that.
And Aaron, this is Andy. We do have a caller on the line who has a question, Mr. Dennis Lawver.
Okay.
Dennis, are you with us?
Going to the next one.
Going on to the next one. So we do have a question that came in via email here from Mike Johnson. He said, as an employer still operating an essential business, we've had a number of scares with employees coming down with coughs, fevers. It's been very difficult to get tests so that we can assure that the other employees are not in harm's way. What is the forecast for additional testing capacity, and how soon might we have testing to see if folks already have COVID-19?
Well, I think there's more test kits available than anybody knows about. I can't believe how Abbott Lab is putting out just not hundreds, but thousands a day. But I think that getting them around the country and getting them used requires training some people to use them, and everything. I expect a massive increase in testing, and I would suggest that your local employer there, the person that asked the question, ask the local hospital, call the governor's office, because this would vary from state to state. And I don't know how many we have in Iowa, but the governor has made references to them. The figures I get out of the president's news conference and from other people at the national level, it just seems to me like they're coming out. Let me compare what I just told you to way back the first week of March, when we had the Navy doctor come to the Republican caucus to tell us about taking these COVID-19 tests, and he said, you put this thing up your nose, you put it in a little tube, it's got to be frozen for 8 hours, then we send it away to a lab, and they test it. We'll probably get back in 5 or 6 days whether or not you've got COVID-19. And then he said when the CDC first put this out, they didn't even have it so it was working right. So it was probably another 2 or 3 weeks that were lost in February on that point. But can you imagine if we still had to do what the Navy doctor told us in May, as opposed to Abbott Laboratories coming out with something that you can get a result in 5 minutes if it's negative or 15 minutes if it's positive? We can get these tests going just as soon as we get people trained to do it, let people know where they are and things like that. But I can't answer when this businessman in Clinton can get it done, because I don't know how this is disseminated throughout Iowa. But there's got to be a massive amount of these coming on, and more coming on every day. And I don't even know how many we need. But the governor might have some information on that, and if I get a chance to talk to the governor today, I'll try to find out myself.
Okay, thank you, sir. Andy, I know we have another question.
We have one more. Dennis is back with us, Mr. Dennis Lawver.
Hang on.
You there, sir?
Yeah.
Senator, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, Senator, good morning. Thank you for all you've done. Actually, Joni Ernst is having an identical conversation as we speak with Chris McGowan in Sioux City, and he's telling her that in the provision going forward, including 501c6 entities, which are typically, that's where the Chamber of Commerce Economic Development Corporations are, allowing them to access PPP and some of those programs is extremely important, Senator, because of the role that Chambers of Commerce and Economic Development Corporations play. Jerry Moran was told that yesterday. Senator Ernst is being informed about that today. So as we speak, I'm asking you to, as they think about continuing these programs forward, include a 501c6 entity because of the role that an economic development corporation or a chamber of commerce play in their community.
Yeah, I had the same telephone conversation with Sioux City last week that Ernst is having this week. And I also had another meeting earlier this week by telephone with another group in Iowa that aren't covered by it. And I think there's a legitimacy for their being covered. So I suggested to Sioux City one of two things. One, that if it needs a change in law, it'll have to wait until we get back into session after May the 4th. Or two, if it can be done by regulation, I told the Sioux City people that I would be happy to call the Secretary of Treasury to put in a word for any sort of guidance or regulation that the Treasury Department can put out to include them, because I think it's very legitimate when you have 200 employees during the summer and you don't qualify for it, you aren't going to be able to hire those people. it's not only that, but it's something that the community is losing a lot of employment at a time of high unemployment.
If I have thoughts or details, perspective, or as it relates to what might be that language for the regulation, should I forward that to Sherry?
Yeah, but I think I would want to do it in conjunction, not just with you, but with the Sioux City people, so that I'm doing the same thing for both groups in the same way.
And he tells me the Ames Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Corporation's got even a worse problem, but the same issue. But that impact is significant. Thank you. I need to follow up with Sherry, and she'll point me on some other issues. You've been very helpful on that immigration issue. You got the document I sent you as a follow-up to our phone call, but I'll follow up with Sherry, and she can point me on that. And I've got another emerging issue, but I'll follow up with Sherry. Thank you, Senator.
And thank you, Dennis. Aaron, back to you.
I have one last question here, and it really has to do with Iowa and the strength of Iowa's economy, which of course is very much focused on agriculture and food production. And so as we all know, there was a trade war. The U.S.-China trade war impacted that quite a bit, pork and soybeans in particular, but other products as well. Then, of course, unfortunately, last year we had extensive flooding that affected the state of Iowa. And now, unfortunately, we also have this, COVID-19 pandemic. So it really is, multiple factors that are affecting, significant areas of Iowa's economy. Sir, what are your thoughts regarding Iowa's economy moving forward? We have some temporary programs right now, trying to focus on small businesses, but at the same time, some portions of the economy have been affected even longer than that. What's your prediction for the U.S. economy and/or the Iowa economy moving forward?
I had a conversation with the Secretary of Agriculture, Perdue, on this very point 48 hours ago, about right now. Okay. And it dealt with what I'm hearing from Iowa pork producers and Iowa beef producers. And it relates to the $25 billion in the CARES Act that goes to the Secretary of Agriculture. And so people are saying, when's that money going to get out? Because they see the small business loan money getting out. And by the way, farmers can qualify under certain conditions for that small business loan program too. But regardless of the $25 billion going to the Secretary of Agriculture, when's the money going to get out? So I think that the Secretary of Agriculture was embarrassed to tell me that it probably won't get out till around June the 1st. He's going to try to get it out sooner, but he wants to say June the 1st so he's not misleading anybody. But he said it's new programs. We got to write regulations, particularly for livestock and specialty crops, and it takes a while to get the regulations approved, and it takes a while to get the software put together for it. He says, I don't understand, because, he's a businessman from Georgia. I don't understand why it takes so long to get things done here in Washington, D.C. But anyway, I told him I was going to call up the Secretary of Treasury and see if he could, because I think the Secretary of Treasury's got some clout in the White House to get things speeded up on it. I have not had a report back on that conversation at this point, so I can't tell you whether that's going to be done sooner. But from the pandemic is creating a lot of problems because there's a very sophisticated process from the birth of a pig to your mouth, and it's got to work almost perfectly. So when you have all these packing plants shutting down now, they're talking about euthanizing pigs as an example, and yesterday I brought this up with the president when we had a telephone conference call with the president on reopening the economy, and so the president asked me to explore what more needs to be done with this process of meat not being able to be slaughtered. I'm very concerned about it because of the old saying that you're only 9 meals away from a revolution. If people can't get food, what would they do to feed their family? I wouldn't say that we'd have a revolution, but we could be 9 meals away from a rioting, and I don't want that to happen. So one other thing is, but this isn't going to help the immediate problem, but there's a lot wrong with the price for the consumers going up when the farmer's losing money and the price is going down every day for the farmer. So I've written to the Secretary of Agriculture and the Attorney General to get this investigated so we don't get into this situation in the future. Mm-hmm. But by the time that's done, hopefully this pandemic's over and the agriculture economy's back.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that, sir. I know we're at the end of our half hour, so I just want to give you a moment. If there's anything else that you would like to share with us, we're certainly very happy to hear it.
Yeah. Kind of the way I opened, we're open for business, even if our offices are closed. And I think every senator office is closed for the reason that Washington, D.C. probably won't hit the apex of their pandemic probably until sometime in May. We go back into session March the 4th, unless that's extended, as it was extended 2 weeks longer just this week. But I hope we get back to do the people's business. In the meantime, we're all operating from our homes, so my staff is still fully working for the people of Iowa, both my Iowa staff and my Washington, D.C. staff. So if you need to get a hold of us, and you called my office at 202-224-3744, is forwarded it, or another way is through email. And we still welcome your emails on issues, and we're getting hundreds and hundreds every day, so we're trying to keep up on getting them answered. Thank you very much for your having this opportunity to talk to the people in the Clinton area.
Thank you so much, sir. And we certainly wish you strong health, you and your family, your staff, who again have been extremely helpful to us and responsive to us. You know, it's a difficult time. A lot of us are still traveling or trying to, through the course of our work, interacting with people, obviously with social distancing and following the rules. So we do hope that you and your family are well, hope that your staff are well. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. We really appreciate it.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody in Clinton area. Goodbye.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Thank you for participating in this morning's call with Senator Chuck Grassley, presented by the Clinton Regional Development Corporation. A recording will be made available on the CRDC's website at clintondevelopment.com. I encourage you to go and check that out. Also, we have a tab on there labeled COVID-19, where we're providing daily updates. I've been your host, Andy Sokolovich from the Clinton Regional Development Corporation. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.